By 1857, the Saints had been in Utah for a decade. Brigham Young was no longer just the leader of a persecuted religious group. He was now president of the church, governor of Utah, and territory superintendent of Indian affairs. Church, state, and native policy were unified under one man. And from Washington, that consolidation of power looked dangerous. In early 1857, reports reached President James Buchanan, claiming that Utah was in open rebellion. Federal officials accused Brigham Young of ignoring federal authority, replacing judges, controlling courts through church leadership, teaching resistance to outside interference. Church history publications acknowledge that federal officers were routinely resisted and some were pressured to leave the territory. Without holding hearings or sending investigators, Buchanan made a decision. In May 1857, he ordered 2,500 U.S. troops to march west to Utah to install a new governor and restore federal control. This would become known as the Utah War, though no formal declaration was ever made. When news reached Utah, Brigham Young interpreted the Army's approach as another Missouri-style expulsion. Church sermons from 1857 show Young warning that the Saints would not submit to outside domination, the territory would not be surrendered peacefully, and Utah would be defended. But his response was strategic, not openly violent. Young declared martial law in September 1857. He ordered roads blocked, supply trains burned, livestock removed, and settlements evacuated. The goal was delay, not battle. The Church History Library confirms that Mormon militia units avoided direct combat, focusing instead on harassment and obstruction. This is one of the most debated aspects of the Utah War. Brigham Young was still superintendent of Indian affairs. Contemporary sermons and correspondence show that native tribes were encouraged to resist U.S. supply lines and reclaim stolen cattle. Young later denied ordering violence, but church-preserved records confirm he spoke openly about native resistance as a strategic advantage. This blurring of authority, religious, civil, military, and native policy intensified the crisis. By winter 1857-1858, the U.S. Army was stranded in Wyoming. No major battles occurred, but the cost was real. Settlements abandoned, crops destroyed, food shortages, and rising fear. And during this same period, amid war rhetoric and paranoia, another tragedy unfolded, the Mountain Meadows Massacre. Church publications clearly separate the massacre from official church orders, but historians agree the Utah war climate created the conditions that made it possible. In June 1858, federal negotiators reached Utah. Brigham Young agreed to step down as governor, accept a federal replacement, and receive a presidential pardon for rebellion. The U.S. Army entered Salt Lake City peacefully. No shots fired, no battles fought, and yet nothing returned to how it was before. The Utah War wasn't about doctrine alone. It was about the limits of religious authority and federal power versus local control. What happens when one man governs belief, law, and forces church publications frame the conflict as a misunderstanding fueled by fear and misinformation? Federal records frame it as enforcement of law. Both can be true. So here's the question history leaves us with. When a prophet believes he's defending God's people, and the federal government believes it's defending the Constitution, who decides where authority ends? And when no battle is fought, but real harm is done, does that make it peace or just unresolved power? If you want LDS history told through records, not rhetoric, follow along.